Today, we're going to talk about social anxiety, and that is the fear of meeting new people. You feel like it holds you back, it keeps you stuck in your shell. You don't feel confident or comfortable, and it's something you really have a challenge with you can't overcome. We're going to be reviewing a video by Alex Hormozi, a really smart guy, but we have some mutual friends in common. I actually heard about him several years ago before he kind of blew up, and it's great to see this happening. Now, if you're new to the channel, myself, who am I? I am a social coach. I've been doing this for damn near 15 years as a student, for 500 books and seminars in the area of self-development. I've also toured internationally, professionally for the last 7 years, teaching over 10,000 people face-to-face and millions online. So I've probably seen about 30,000, 40,000 examples of social anxiety in total, and I really have some interesting thoughts about it. And I'm gonna teach you today how to just overcome it in general. If it's something you've been having challenges with for a very long time, you might even consider this my social anxiety masterclass. It's gonna be intense, it's gonna be really, really good, all right? I'm gonna help you reframe anxiousness in your mind.
Sensational. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about how to fix the character traits and deficiencies that you have in your life. So whether that be struggling with anxiety or happiness and depression, or being a bad husband, or being money focused, or whatever the thing is that you claim to have a problem with, I want to give you really the only mental framework that has ever worked for me. All right, so here's the deal. Here's the hot take. What most of them will do is they will try and pull something up and say something to the extent of, what do you make that mean? What does that mean to you? The thought process behind this is, hey, you have this thing, it's triggering a feeling. It's because you think that having anxiety makes you a bad person or makes you a bad entrepreneur or whatever thing that you say it has meaning, right? What do we make this mean? All right, that's the question. What are you making this mean? All right, so if you have problems, and this is especially important with cyclical behavior, reinforcing behavior, this is also one of the reasons that I actually do not stand for the whole AA concept of standing up in front of people every morning and say, hi, everybody, I am an addict. I fucking hate it. It's literally like owning this deficiency and incorporating it and weaving it into your construct and your identity, and you reinforce it every fucking morning. It's insanity to me. The way to stop being addicted to something is to stop thinking about it. Like, what does it look like to not be addicted? It looks like you just continuing to live your life, not even thinking about it. What does it look like to not have anxiety? It's not you doing your anti-anxiety routine in the morning and saying, I suffer from anxiety or I struggle with anxiety. It's not saying that and saying, I have to do these things, I must, I should, I need to, in order to not have anxiety, because then you're thinking about anxiety. You give anxiety power.
Stop it. Get some help.
So here's my thought on this, because I'm actually a cognitive behavioral therapist myself, and I think people that just kind of sit in a room and counsel you cannot give you the real world feedback. When I work with people on live programs, I'm happy to be there with them in person at bars, lounges, nightclubs, parks, wherever, at events, because it's exposure therapy and I can see them in real time. The problem with approach anxiety or any kind of social anxiety is you think about it and therefore it is true. If you pay me thousands of dollars to come on a program, I will sit there and I will listen to your problem about your anxiety. And I'll say, oh yes, what's it like? Tell me about it. How do you experience it? I listen to it. But in reality, at a very, very advanced level, having done this for over a decade, I'm like, why are we talking about this? I'm like, this is crap. This is bull, right? Like, because you have to understand, the more I sit there and entertain you and talk about it, the more we get to a point where it becomes a reality. And now we spent an hour talking about this thing, and we're gonna go out and we're gonna practice for another hour about this thing. And therefore you're thinking about this thing of anxiety while we talk to people. But in reality, the best thing I can do is be like, hey, that's what happens sometimes. And just like, we move on and we continue. It's like saying you want to have a life where you never feel sad. You're always going to feel sad at some moments in your life. It's just part of the human experience, rather than trying to just completely eliminate it. When you try to just completely eliminate anxiety, you're saying, I don't want to have anxiety in my life at all. A more healthier question would be, how do I have anxiety socially, and then decide to just move forward and work with it anyways?
Hey, that's pretty good.
Because let me tell you something very, very surprising to you. I still have anxiety. Not a lot, but every once in a while I'll have it. And it's not like a anxiety that I can't do it, that I can't go talk to somebody, that I can't make a conversation, that I'm definitely always gonna be stuck in this gear. It's not like an anxiety like that. It's more of like an anxiety in terms of, I have social stuckness at this moment. I haven't been active socially all day. I don't feel like it. I'm not in the mood. What's the point of this? Like, I might have those kind of anxieties. But I'm in a position where I can manage them, and I can say to myself, this is not something I need to be concerned about because I can manage this long term. So I'm not sitting there saying to myself, I want to completely eliminate anxiety from my life and completely eliminate it from this moment. The better question that I'm asking myself is, how do I deal with the anxiety in this moment and move forward anyways? How do I feel the way I feel and make a progress moving forward and take action despite this? Not trying to get rid of it, but perhaps recognizing the anxiety as a I'm excited about this opportunity. Opportunity to interact with people means something to me. It's something that gets me motivated. It means I have some stakes on the line. It means I'm alive. Taking it in that kind of aspect in my mental frame rather than like this is something I want to get rid of and eliminate, because that's not healthy.
And this is what happened. I adopted this mentality, and I will share it with you, called fuck happiness. All right? Bear with me. And so what ended up happening is that I thought these thoughts, and whenever the idea of, is this making me happy, and all of these normal trigger thoughts, I'd be like, oh, I'm unhappy, this isn't good, I feel sad, blah, 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 blah. I would literally have this trump card that I would just pop in my head and be like, fuck happiness, and I keep moving. The difference between fuck happiness and let's think about how we should be grateful for things is that when you say fuck happiness or fuck the thing that you are struggling with, fuck anxiety, fuck whatever, is that it no longer has power because we're not trying to transform the meaning of the behavior. We are eliminating the meaning behind it altogether.
There we go. This reminds me of something I actually heard from Elon Musk. Not comparing myself to Elon Musk. It's something I heard about him say in an interview. I believe it was maybe Lex Friedman. He asked him, what makes you motivated? What demotivates you? And he said, I don't think in those terms of like motivated or excited, or I think of terms of more like, I think in terms of what is the execution, what needs to be done, and let's get there. How do we do it? So he's not spending his time wallowing in his feelings of pity or confidence. He's just thinking what needs to be done pragmatically and rationally from that standpoint. And that makes him a better executor. So for yourself, if you have social anxiety, rather than sitting there and saying, why do I have anxiety? Why is this happening to me? Why am I scared? Why am I not more confident? Why? These why questions will stump your brain. These why questions will make you feel horrible. The human brain is incredible. The mind will think of things even if it doesn't know the answer to. If you say, why do I suck? Your brain will give you 20 reasons why you suck as an individual and human being, even if they're not accurate or true. So instead of asking why questions, a better question to refocus your mind to ask yourself is how. How can I make this happen right now at this moment? How can I get the goal that I want? How can I get the how can I get the objective done? What is the best path forward to success? What questions are good too? What do I do next? What can I say here? What is the next step? These questions will be better for you because the path of that social interaction will be revealed to you as you're moving forward, not necessarily when you're sitting there asking, how come this happens to me question. So I'd ask, what do I do? And how do I do it next? Yeah, baby.
We're transforming it into nothing. And so hear me out for a second. And I don't know why this is getting all spacey and weird. I've tried to fix this thing 100 times. The reason this is so important, all right, is that when you enter these vicious reinforcing cycles, so let's say it's like, oh God, I'm afraid I'm gonna have a panic attack tonight. I don't wanna have a panic attack. You start thinking about having a panic attack. And then of course you have a panic attack because the fear of the thing is what reinforces the cycle. And you can do this with anything, right? It could be a guy with erectile dysfunction. Like, I hope it doesn't happen. I hope it doesn't happen. And then it happens, right? Because you're worried about it happening, not because the happening itself is the thing, right? And I'm trying to use examples that purposefully people derive shame from. Because the thing is that the shame of the occurrence is the thing that gives it power. And so if you remove the shame, and by the way to remove shame is to shed light on it. So nothing can give you shame if you admit it openly. Think about it. If everyone knows the thing and you accept the thing or deem the thing meaningless, then it no longer has power over you. So let me give you an example. So this entrepreneur that I was talking about earlier, they were telling me that they were having, they're having anxiety attacks and it was preventing them from sleeping, etc. Right? And I was like, so? And they're like, well, I'm really working on it. And I was like, why? And they were like, looked at me cross-eyed, and I was like, how long have you been working on this? And they were like, 8 months. And I was like, are you less anxious than you were before? They're like, well, I think a little bit. And I was like, do you think you would be a little bit less anxious if you just did jack shit and waited 8 months from when you were bad until now? They were like, well, maybe. I was like, time does heal lots of wounds. I was like, so you spent all this time to get this little outcome, and you could have just let time happen and probably had the same outcome, right? Right. I was like, but let's take it one step further. Why didn't you tell me how many bowel movements you had yesterday? I mean, I didn't think it was relevant. Exactly. So why are you sharing with me that you have panic attacks? Because you think it's meaningful. You derive meaning. Your brain is telling you that this is something that is a problem.
I really like that. Again, this goes back to like what we were saying before, right? If you have approach anxiety, you want to eliminate the approach anxiety and then get the result of what you want, which is a great interaction with somebody. It's like, no, if you went out and just tried to get the good interaction with somebody, express yourself, whether it went good or it went bad, you would no longer have that anxiety because the action has been taken and maybe you've gotten a result. Now, you could get a great result, right? And you get like, maybe you meet somebody, you get to go home with them, or you start a new friendship, or you get a business contact. It's like, great, I had the result. And once you had the result, the anxiety is like an afterthought because it was a moment in time that's passed. Does that make sense? Think of it this way too. You might be saying, well, what happens if I go and I don't get the result I want? Well, at least then you can say you've done it. And you'll always regret not approaching the person that you want to approach. You'll always regret not meeting the person that could be your future wife or husband. You'll always regret not going for that connection and that somebody who would be a great social network or a friend to have. You'll always regret not going for it, but you will never regret taking action.
It's necessary.
You will never, ever, ever regret that. That is a guarantee. Because even if you failed, you'd be like, well, at least I did it. You know, who the F would have the balls to do that? Who would have the guts to do that? Nobody but me. I went up and I got rejected like a boss. I went up and I didn't get the result, but I took action like a boss. I went up and I learned a lesson about that interaction like a boss. So you'll never regret going for it, but you will always regret not taking action.
The thing is that the deeming of the thing a problem is the problem. And trying to change it or transform the meaning into something else is, in my opinion, just as bad, because the way that you created the mess that you are in a vicious cycle of reinforcement is that you found a thing and then you said, I will give this meaning, and then you spent the rest of your time trying to transform the meaning. When if you want to solve the problem, the experience of having the problem solved is to not think about the problem at all. What it is actually reversing the process that created meaning to begin with, which is removing meaning altogether. I'm saying this because I've had so many things that I've struggled with in my life that I would consistently obsess about over and over and over again. Like, oh, I don't want to have that happen again. Oh, I don't want to have that happen again. And then it would happen. And so, in my opinion, the only way to overcome these issues is you can slap the fuck happiness concept on it, but is to destroy the meaning of the thing itself and let it shrink into irrelevance. My opinion, most of the psychological problems that we deal with are better dealt with not by trying to directly combat them, but by not giving them the power of our attention. And there's a big difference here. I'm not saying the thought of anxiety comes up and you say, oh, I don't want to think about it, because then it's fear. Fear gives it power. Shame gives it power. It's not that. It's looking at it and saying, why are you bringing this up? This is irrelevant. This is a non-issue. And so for the same reason that you can have noise in the background and you don't think about it, is that it's just noise. And so what we do is we shrink the thing from being a signal that our brain deems meaningful to noise that is in the background that we no longer ascribe meaning to altogether. And that is how it eventually shrinks into irrelevance. And then we only choose to allocate our attention towards the thing that we find meaningful, right? And so what happened in my little fuck happiness story is that I said, this is no longer a productive conversation. I'd be like, I'm unhappy. I'd be like, fuck happiness, whatever. I'm gonna keep moving. And a funny thing happened. A few years later, I looked up and I realized that I was significantly more happy than I was before. Or as I prefer to say, I was significantly less unhappy, which also gives less power to the thing altogether.
What I really love about that is it sounds like he got out of self-comparison. You know, there's this great movie I watched a while ago. I can't remember what it was called, but it was like, biggest killer of happiness is self-comparison, comparing yourself to how you should be or how you shouldn't be. So I should have happiness. I should not have anxiety. I should be successful. I should this, I should that. And you might not be even comparing yourself to other people, which is not good, by the way. Don't compare yourself to other people because you don't know what the challenges are that they're having. But you might just be comparing yourself to yourself. You might say, man, a year ago, I was so good at meeting strangers. I can just walk up to anybody and start a conversation. I was just killing it. I was the boss. I was a G, right? You might be like, oh, now I suck. Now, wallow in my pettiness, wah. And so you feel horrible about it because now you're like comparing yourself to how you used to be. Or you have an idea of where you should be right now. You're like, I should be amazing at this. I've been practicing for X amount of time. I need alcohol. I don't feel great right now. Let me get some alcohol to feel more socially comfortable. And so you're comparing yourself to what you think an idealized self should be. This also actually is great because in psychology and cognitive behavioral therapy, we call these labels. Should labels, or I must. I should this, I should that. I must this, I must that. Whenever we put labels on something as should and must, we're gonna feel like crap. Guaranteed, you will always feel like crap. Because when you say should and must, automatically implies to your brain that you don't have and something is wrong with you. That is the undertone of that there. I should, but I don't. Something's wrong with me. What's going on? So never put these should labels of how you should be feeling right now, or how you should have done this, or how you must feel that. Just like, what can I do in this moment to go in the direction I want to go? Let me just take that action and then, see how I feel afterwards. That's the best way to take action and make things happen.
Different point that I want to bring up, because I think it's equally important around this topic. A lot of the fear and the shame comes from perceived judgment that we have from an anonymous outside society, right? We have a voice or a series of voices that we believe exist, that only exist in our mind, that are judging us based on this behavior that we are suffering from. One of the reasons that I like to own the deficiencies publicly is not because of you guys, it's for me. I own, like, for example, when I had, when we were running and growing our first big business, which was the licensing business, I was always upfront. I said, I'm here to make money. And the reason I said that was so that I would have no shame in making money. Because then if people in the future were going to say something like, Alex is only here to make money, I would then look at them and say, and? So hear me out. Listen to this dialogue. Let's say I was attacked, because the attacks that I'm saying I'm going to portray as though is outside, but it's inside of our minds that we attack ourselves, right? So let's say somebody comes up to me, a woman, and says, you're a terrible husband. Most people say that there are two forms of defense against this. Number one is saying, no, I'm not a bad husband, right? And then giving all the reasons why I'm a good husband. The other way to defend against that would be to say, well, being a husband's not necessarily such a bad thing, right? And so one is to dispute, the other is to alter, right? We're altering the meaning behind the thing. The first is we're combating and we're saying that we're not the thing, but still allowing the thing to have meaning, allowing a bad husband to be a negative connotation that we ascribe meaning to. I think this is meaningful and it's negative, but meaningful. And so I will say I am not that thing. Or version two is this thing is meaningful, but I understand it and interpret differently. Right? Those are the two ways. The second way is how most therapy works. And I also think that it's bullshit. And so here's door number 3, is that you look at the thing in the face and you say, and I think you're a bad husband. And you're right. And watch them shrivel. They will be paralyzed because everything that they have exists to have a counterforce. But if there is no counterforce for it to react to, the thought process stops. And so if you struggle with these vicious, recurring, consistent dialogues and arguments in your head about what's good and why it should change and why you need to be different and why this shouldn't be this way, just look at it in the eyes and say, and I'm going to give you a really controversial example of what I think should have happened in a public scenario. Tiger Woods. He was outed, you know what I mean, or ousted, or whatever it is, you know what I mean? He was publicly shamed for the cheating thing, right? And mind you, this is not me condoning cheating. This is me to illustrate a position of power. And this is a public demonstration of power, but you can take it in terms of how you can internally project that power onto the idea that you want to vanquish. All right. And we don't vanquish it by transforming it. We vanquish it by eliminating the meaning altogether and letting it shrink into irrelevance. So what Tiger, in my opinion, should have done in that situation when they said, you banged all these girls and you were lying and blah, 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 blah. He should have said, yes, I'm a liar and a cheater, but I'm the best fucking golfer there is. Next question. What do they say? When you accept it, there is no conversation. And so try this in the next argument you have with someone, but more importantly with yourself.
This can go deep. I feel like I'm having a podcast, like a conversation with you, Alex. I think this is great because there's lots of ways this can apply. How would it apply to you in this video for talking about social anxiety? Think of it this way. Everybody has a reason to be socially anxious. Everybody does. Right now I got my Invisalign in, right? We're wearing that. So I could be like, oh, my tooth is crooked. That could be a reason for me. But I say, well, it's not fair because Madison, you're like 6'1" and you're tall and you're black, and like black guys are seen as being socially smooth, and that could be great. One perspective. Another perspective is I could just be seen as only a sexual non-person character in an interaction, right? I'm not actually a human being. So to some people, it could be you're too short. It could be someone or yourself, like you're not from this country, speak a different language. It could be your style's not that good. It could be you're balding. It could be losing your hair. It could be like, dude, it could be like a million reasons. A million reasons to be socially anxious. Here's the thing. Everybody has one. Some of us have 2. Some of us have 3. But there's not a single person in the world that has 0. They might not show it, they might not admit it, but they have something. They have 1, right? It's like saying the perfect family. No one has a perfect family. Everybody has a family that has at least one issue. Maybe if your father's around, your mom was alcoholic, or maybe both parents were around, they had financial issues, or if they didn't have any financial issues, maybe they didn't give you enough love and attention. Everybody has a family deficiency and everybody has a social deficiency in some way. You just might not see it in that moment. So don't be like, yo, I wish I didn't have this thing, because if you didn't have this social anxiety, you would have another one about something else socially. You're gonna have one or the other. You're always gonna have one. So the point is not to eliminate it, just kind of accept it and be like, yeah, so, and move on. That's why I think what Alex is saying is amazing here, because essentially what he's saying is yes, and like, yes, I am that thing, and what? And what? You give no meaning to it. You give no power to it. You don't speak it to power. It's not something that you disrespect. It's something that you realize just doesn't have meaning to the overall picture, the scheme of life with other people.
Is that if someone says, I think you're X, Y, and Z, and you said, you're right. Just give the power. Just say, sure, you're right. Now what? And so, your point? When your brain tells you something that you don't like or that you don't want to look at, instead of trying to make it into something else, liken it to an irrelevant observation. Brain, why didn't you bring up that I have brown hair? Because it doesn't matter. Brain, why didn't you bring up how many bowel movements I had yesterday? Because it doesn't matter. Brain, why didn't you tell me how many stairs I went up yesterday? Because it doesn't matter. You don't find it meaningful. And so why am I now deeming this thing to be meaningful? It's irrelevant to me. It halts the conversation and it stops the cycle.
Yo, here's another dope way to think about this. Is there somebody out there in the world that has achieved the social result that you want, and they have the same challenge that you have? And the answer to that, I would guess, not guessing, I'm highly educated. The answer to that is yes, I've seen people. Maybe you've seen people too. A friend of a friend, a celebrity, somebody in a club who's able to be more social than you. Somebody that you've heard about, somebody on TV. Now your brain would actually come up with excuses and be like, well, they're famous. Well, they had an earlier start. Well, they this, way, they that. But I guess there's also somebody that's done it without those advantages. There's somebody that has went out in the world and achieved what you wanted to with the same thing that you deem to be an efficiency. A setback. There's somebody that's done it. So if they've done it and it's repeatable by a human being, this has been modeled, isn't it possible that you also could achieve that result as well? Is it possible? Not that you feel confident about it, but is it possible? And I would beg to argue the answer is an astounding yes. Nothing but that. So if somebody else has done it, you can do it. If somebody else has achieved something, it is achievable. If two people have done it, gosh damn, we got a model or something. Once we got a model, it's not a one-off luck thing. It's a repeatable situation. If somebody with your same mental setback has achieved the social life you want, learn from them, model them, see that it's possible. And also, most importantly, don't let it be a mental thing where you're blocking yourself. Don't cock block your mind and your soul and your spirit from expressing yourself. See me? And by the way, if you want to learn how to do this video is sponsored by me in my own program, Conversation Mentoring. It's a great program, teaches you how to get out of your own head, how to express yourself socially, have more confidence, never run out of things to say, negotiate with people and be able to come up with things that are interesting and have deeper rapport. This is available. I've had this program out for about 2 years. It's incredible. I haven't revised it yet because it's a great program. It doesn't need revision. And it's just done really well. People have taken it. So if you want to find out more about it, I highly advise you to hop onto one of my transformation calls that I have that are absolutely free for a limited time. We will be retiring the program soon and we'll make it unavailable to people. So while you have the opportunity to do it, something you've been thinking about, now's the time to do it. There's a link down below. Click on it. Get on one of my free assessment calls with my team. We're going to break through what's holding you back in your inner talk, and at least having that clarity is a first start to becoming the truest potential of yourself socially. All right, getting that clarity on the inner talk, mastering that, and figuring out a path to move forward. So hop on that link down below in the description, do that, and let's continue with the video.
All right, and so I'm sharing the single most powerful mental model that has worked for me, which is purposefully staring at the problem and saying, so what? Your move. And watch it shrivel. And then moving on the fuck with your life. So anyways, I love you all. Mosey Nation, appreciate you. Thank you for giving me the attention that you did today. I make these videos because I combating.
Cool. Yeah, really dope. If you're not already, go subscribe to Alex's channel. I'll put a link to this full video down below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. I don't usually do reviews of people like this, but I feel like it was some great information, and when I was listening to it, I got about halfway through the video initially, and it sparked some great ideas in myself. I saw the correlation between the two things, and thought it'd be amazing, be really, really good. So yeah, Alex, if you see this, hope you got something out of this, man. I hope you enjoyed it. And everybody else who is a fan of Alex or just a fan of myself or social commentary or social analytics, anxieties, dynamics, whatever. You learned a lot. But I want you to watch this video and not just hopefully watch it for entertainment purposes, but watched it and thought about one unique problem that you have as you watched this, and you were able to reframe that social anxiety problem that you had as you watched the video, and you use this as a working session in real life. All right. And if this was helpful for you, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I got even more to go deeper down the rabbit hole. I got a video right here about social anxiety, how to fix it in real time when you're out socializing with people, when you can't sit down and watch a video like this. So go ahead, click that right now. And of course, my mini course is over here, content for conversation mentoring down below, and I'll see you in a second. Let's keep going. Yeah.